This is Brenna Mejia. He is a Power Rangers content creator. He does videos on YouTube, TikTok, and he was also a Red Ranger himself as well. He played Taylor Navaro, the Red Dino Charge Ranger. Personally, I really enjoyed Dino Charge. I know people have mixed opinions on it. I think it is a solid season, but I wasn't lying at the start. He does post YouTube videos, and this is his most recent video that has a film in drop today. As if you've seen it, might have dropped yesterday. Top 10 reasons the Power Rangers movie failed. I am a massive defender of the 2017 Power Rangers movie. It did fail, by all means. Like, obviously we would have had a sequel if it didn't. So as a defender of the film, I thought maybe I'd look at what he's saying, see if I agree with anything, see if I disagree, and just give you my thoughts.
Number 10, monster design. By design, I don't necessarily just mean the aesthetic of the monsters, but also their personalities or lack thereof. Specifically, I'm referring to the putties as well as Goldar.
The first point is the monsters, and mainly how Goldar and the putties don't feel like Goldar and the putties in the slightest. And not even that, they feel soulless. So obviously the putties in the show, they're very iconic. They got like, blah, 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 like the thing they got going on. And Goldar's got this, I'll get you, Power Rangers. He's got like that graspy voice. He's very animated. And I know they went for a more serious tone with this film, but I can agree with that. Goldar specifically, the putties, I mean, I'm not that bothered about the putties, but Goldar was such an iconic character. He seems like a Zord in this. Like, just a lifeless, no emotion. If they made a sequel, I'd always loved the idea that like Rita Repulsa would be found in space by a ship with like Finster on it and Squat and Babu or something, and they would be like some sort of in the show he's a griffin, but like griffin or like gorilla or ape that when fused with gold like is brought to life and like that's the actual Goldar. Something along those lines. I agree with point number 10, or at least point 1.
Number 9, morphin time. Okay, this one is more of a minor complaint on my part, but because it's morphin time is such an iconic line throughout Power Rangers, the way that it was delivered in the movie, it wasn't that it was a bad line reading. I thought it was cool in the sense where he's like, it's morphin time. As an audience, if everyone knew that line was coming, you could almost feel the energy being like palpable in the air if everyone was like, it's morphin time! So
of course that second point is about the line, it's morphin time. As we know, Jason steps onto the little stand that they've all got to stand on to connect to the morphin grid, and he just says it very casually, like not as a catchphrase, but just to himself. He's like, it's morphin time. And yes, at some point, if we had got a sequel, I'd want it's morphin time to be their catchphrase. And I think Billy could have been the one to introduce that. Maybe the second time we see them morph, Billy yells it, and they're like, what are you doing? And he's like, I'm saying it's morphin time. He's like, why? He's like, well, you said it. It's like, yeah, I said it casually one time. Like, that would have been cool, I think, if down the line that kept happening, if they did do the dramatic it's morphin time. I don't mind it for the concept of this film, because the way they were doing it was very much, let's do it so that it's not entirely corny, and then I imagine, kind of like the Sonic films did it, where like this, they slowly unravel and make it more cartoonish and make it more Power Ranger-ish. Obviously, nothing gets any Power Ranger fan going. You're in this morphin time belted at the top of your lungs, but I think I didn't expect them to say it, if I'm being honest. So the fact that he did say it, I don't mind that, because I feel like it really wouldn't have been out of question for them to just leave that line out altogether.
Pacing. So this one's kind of hard because I did enjoy the backstory that they gave us on the Rangers, but it came at the sacrifice of the movie moving at a pace that felt Power Ranger-y.
So this point is more or less the fact that we only see the Power Rangers right at the end with the Megazord scene, and he goes on to say that it felt like the Megazord scene and the Ranger scene like was at the cost of having more backstory. And I do kind of agree. I think it's weird. It was weird for me personally, because I went into it knowing who Jason was, knowing who Kimberly and Billy was, and instead I got to see slightly different versions. Okay, Billy is really smart, but he's autistic, and he hasn't really got any friends. And Jason, you know, he is like this athlete, but you know, and especially all the Rangers, they were literally teenagers with attitude. They weren't just goody two-shoes, right? And I like that. So for me, I still enjoy just watching the Rangers not be Power Rangers. I've also always said, if we got at least one more sequel, let's say they didn't do 7 films, but they did a sequel, that would have been the film to have Rangers from start to finish, and that is what could have been the make or break for the franchise. Obviously, we never got that. I see what you're saying. I know that's a lot of people's issue. I'm pretty sure back in the day I probably would have said the same. I just think it's for fans of Power Rangers, it's more than we ever got in terms of character development, and I really enjoyed it, especially seeing the powers out of O-Suit. Obviously, if you're not a fan of Power Rangers and you've come to see the action and stuff, then obviously, yeah, you're gonna want to have the Power Rangers in it. Realistically, so that's a 50-50. I completely understand what's being said. I think that's why getting a sequel was important, because I do think we needed needed that story before they became Rangers.
The suits. Now, talking about the Rangers, the suits didn't do it for me. And I know some people really thought they were cool, but honestly, if you didn't tell me they were part of Power Rangers, and you told me like before posters came out, and you're like, oh, these are the new bad guys in the next Iron Man movie, I feel like I would have believed you.
Now this I disagree on. I love these suits. Do I like them more than the originals? No. Do I like them more than the 95 movie suit? No. Could they have been better? Absolutely. I find it weird the thing you said about like, if you told me these were from Iron Man, then I'd believe you, or like they didn't look like Power Rangers. I mean, to me, the little buckle in the center of like the waist, the diamond on the chest, the lips, the helmet, to me, these look like Power Rangers, right? They don't look like the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. They look like really weird adaptations of them, but they look like Power Rangers. And whilst I would have made changes to the design, I think for the type of film they were going for, these are perfect. You know, for example, there's reportedly a film coming with Paramount. They're doing the Sonic franchise. They're very clearly trying to make everything look very original in a real world, and then, you know, we're going with like the games, the cartoons, like that's what it's based off of. In a world like that, where it's like a PG, I could see the suits being a bit more flamboyant, I guess. In a PG-13 setting, I think this is what the suits needed to look like. And that could just be me. Let me know in the comments. I'll open the discussion. Absolutely don't really get that statement that they just look like Iron Man films. Oh, like they don't look like Power Rangers, because I feel like they do. Like I like these more than some of the suits we've had in the Power Ranger TV show. Although there is a point he makes about the feet. The girls on the team have like heels built into their shoes, and that is just stupid. Yeah, they're meant to be fighting. Why are they wearing high heels? I get that.
Krispy Kreme. It's one thing just to have a Ranger eating a Krispy Kreme donut randomly, but to make the whole thing about the Zeo crystals, if I recall, were under a Krispy Kreme and it tied into the story, that's too much for me. I'm sorry. Like,
Krispy Kreme was stupid in the film, yes, but this is how I look at it. So first of all, I was like, oh my god, this is nuts. Why is Krispy Kreme this prominent? It's just a brand deal. To me, it falls into what happened right at the start of the film. So in Power Rangers, right, Angel Grove was being attacked, and Zordon and Alpha just happened to be in Angel Grove. At no point did Rita say we're attacking Zordon and Alpha, right? Zordon and Alpha just happened to be in Angel Grove. The Desert of Despair just happened to be like around the corner. Like there was all this stuff that like just coincidentally happened in the place where powers were, right? I like the scene at the start of the film because the spaceship crashes, and over millions and millions and millions of years, and the Earth like goes on. That just so happens to be where Angel Grove was. I think it makes sense, and it's funny. I'm not saying it's like masterful. It's hilarious, right? But I think it makes sense that the Zeo Crystal would just be in the stupidest place, because the boss, like what, like if it was in like a temple, sure, cinematic, that's cool, but like why is it coincidentally in a temple? It would have been there for millions and millions of years before like people were even around on Earth to build around it. And I think the fact that the Krispy Kreme, I think it was an incredible brand placement. Just because it would just be underneath a random Krispy Kreme. It'd be underneath like a Walmart or just like, you know, an Asda. And I think that works. Yeah, it's stupid. Yeah, it's silly. And it is one of the things that sort of like counters, because the film does teeter on the line of like, oh, this is really serious, then this is really goofy, then this is serious, and this is goofy. I think it's fucking hilarious.
Fight locations, where the fights take place, has a lot to do with the stakes that you feel and the emotional connection with the characters who are fighting the forces of evil. So when the Power Rangers teams fought the putties kind of on like that mountainside or wherever the heck they were, there was no one else around. So it didn't feel like, again, they were fighting for an empty audience. And then even when they fought near the Krispy Kreme and the Megazord, there were people around kind of, but it was just kind of them in their own world fighting against this enclosed bad guy battle.
So I completely get what's being said there. For the Megazord scene, I kind of disagree. There was buildings being destroyed. There was people watching. There was people obviously filming. Granted, it wasn't until the end. It would have been cool to have some people like cheering or watching or running during it, because you see it during like the individual Zord fights as well. The fights with the putties was a bit lackluster, because it was for like it was like 2 minutes max, and then the Zord comes in and then this Megazord time, right? I get that. Power Rangers was kind of the same though. Like they'd be in like a city, but then everybody would immediately scram and be gone, and then the Rangers would keep fighting. I would have liked like a Ranger to monster fight in like a street where people's lives could be in danger, because I would have just heightened the stakes, like absolutely. The Zord battle, I feel like I wouldn't change too much about that. That kind of is what it needed to be. Yeah, maybe the putty fight, I would have said, yeah, just pop that in Angel Grove rather than have that be right outside the base, and then it's a bit sourceless. Yeah, so I think I do kind of agree with that one.
The Zords. So speaking of character designs and monsters and all of that, the aesthetic of the Megazords themselves, or the Zords, it didn't land right with me. Like, they looked more like Transformers than they looked like Power Ranger mech stuff. So to me, and it matched the aesthetic of the suits, but again, since I mentioned the suit aesthetic didn't do it for me, therefore it goes to follow that the Zord aesthetic didn't do it for me. I didn't like the glowing face thing on the Megazord. It didn't have, again, the personality. Like, the normal Megazord is so iconic. And again, they could have done an updated version of it.
Okay, so this might be another 50-50 one. I like the glowing. I think that's just like the morphing grid running through the Zord. I think that makes sense. I think that's a cool choice. Fair enough, give him a face. It was weird that all the Rangers were in their own separate compartments. It would have, of course, been cool if they were in a big cockpit. But yeah, that's maybe a bit too on the nose. The Megazord design in general, if you don't like it, you don't like it. But I think it's weird to say the glow. I think that's one of the coolest things. The fact you can see the morphing grid run through it. The individual Zords, though, I do think, like, the T-Rex kind of looks like a T-Rex. The Pterodactyl kind of looks like a Pterodactyl. The Mastodon and Saber-Tooth Tiger look nothing like those things. And the Triceratops, the only thing it's got going for it is the head. I'll give that one off. The Zords look weird. But the glow, I love the morphing grid glow. I apologize, I keep moving away from the mic, but I love the morphing grid glow.
Tone. What I mean by tone is it felt like the movie had a hard time finding its footing with if they wanted to cater towards more mature themes or cater towards kid things. So, you know, the joke, they had a thing with the Red Ranger and a cow in the beginning. I'm not going to talk, you can watch it if you want to know what I'm talking about, which seemed very mature. I mean, it was funny, but it was like, oh, okay, that's an interesting joke. And then later, they read a repulse to talking about Krispy Kreme donuts. I was like, what?
Yes. 100% agree with this one. The joke at the beginning, which was, if in my opinion, quite R-rated for PG-13, the fact that they like, and I'm not being like I didn't want to see that. Like, I thought it was funny. Like, I don't care that it was in there. But to go from that and then for some of the more lighthearted jokes in the film is quite weird. It feels like, I mean, and maybe this was purposeful, but like everything pre them becoming Rangers was very dark and serious with a little bit of lightheartedness. Then once they became Rangers, it became really goofy. Makes sense, kind of. Pay homage to the show. Like, they're the Rangers, they're goofy, that's what it is. But yeah, it was weird. It was weird. Like, spoiler alert, Billy's death was like nuts, and even though it was kind of spoiled because obviously we all saw the trailers, we knew the Blue Ranger was going to be a thing, and then they became Rangers all within like 5 minutes, and by the time they were Rangers they were already like, whoa, wow, this is sick, let's go. And maybe they were just euphoric because Billy was back to life, but it struggled to find the tone that I wanted.
Fights. So I don't mean fights in the sense of the choreography that they used for the fights that did exist, but the quantity of fights was severely lacking for something that's so much about Power Ranger martial art type stuff.
I agree with, but it's kind of like the point from earlier about there not being any like suit action till the end. I think it needed a sequel to show off more than that. We had the training montage in the pit where they're fighting the holographic putties. There was obviously the fight with the putties when they're suited, and then with the Megazord fight, and that was it. And then maybe if you class the slap in detention, I mean, I don't really. That was pretty much it. And I believe Zach and Jason getting a tussle at one point. But there's, like, it needed more of that. It really did. And then also, because, like, obviously, they weren't martial artists, but they did get trained. And maybe if there was just, like, a little putty fight, like just a smaller putty fight, maybe they were chilling at Krispy Kreme for all I care, and then a couple of putties showed up, and they were, like, the ones that maybe Rita sent as, like, oh, let me just make sure that I can still do this. Like, little test putties, and then a little fight or something. I think that would have been cool. It did lack in fights. It lacked in action. It did. When it's Power Rangers and it needs action, and maybe I'll agree with you even more with my older point when I said that I enjoyed the elongation of just the unsuited bit. Yeah, it could have done with more action, definitely.
Not casting me in the movie. No, seriously. You may think I'm joking, but I did audition for the 2017 movie. Now, again, this isn't a knock against the current cast, but there's definitely something when you hire an actual fan who also, I guess, already has the experience of that role versus, I mean, I don't know if the current cast were fans or not, I have no idea. But I auditioned for the movie. I believe Camille auditioned for the movie, who was the Pink Ranger in Dino Charge. I think Yoshi Sudarso auditioned for the movie. No, he tried and they wouldn't let him, I think. But they let me and Camille audition for some reason. I auditioned for the Black Ranger, so I would have been Zach, which would have been awesome.
So the main point here is that if they had cast fans or existing Power Rangers, but he took it from a fan perspective, which was nice, the movie could have been better. Well, he kind of goes on to say, he doesn't say that'd make the film better, but he would have added something with somebody who knew the source material. Now, I don't know how much of the source material was known from these guys. I believe Ludi Lin, who did play the Black Ranger, who Brennan auditioned for, did say that he like loved the Yellow Ranger, I think, growing up, and they had that like the Yellow Ranger action figure. I think I disagree with that, not because I don't think Brennan could do it, or that Yoshi Sadasa could do it, or that Camille could do it. I think it's more so this needed to be the new thing. Like, I did film in university, right? And there was a scene where we needed to film a car, and we were constantly told, you can get the best driver in the world. When they consciously know there's a camera, or they can see the camera or anything like that, it heightens the risk of like something going wrong, right? And I feel like bringing people in who either were Power Rangers before or were that big a fan of the show, you could fall into the trap of like, no matter how much they try and like do something new, they're still bringing the show's energy. Maybe you all disagree. Maybe I'm chatting shit. I just think having people who know what it is but can bring something new to it, because at the end of the day, it's down to the director as well and the writers to like portray this film and like make it as Power Rangers as it can be within this new style they wanted to do. I think having people who didn't know the show that well worked out better, because you could have new characters. I didn't have a problem with any of these characters. Problems that I think within this film was what we've already discussed: the lack of Rangers footage, the short amount of fights. Like, I don't think it was the cast or the characters that did this. And again, I reiterate, I don't think this isn't me saying I don't think you guys could do it. I think the best call was to have people who didn't know, because that's how we do something new, and then that's also how we create a new universe, rather than try too hard to play off the old one. I keep hitting my mic today, guys, I'm sorry. And so yeah, those were the 10 reasons why Brenna Mejia thought that the movie failed. Thank you guys for watching. I will point out that I did get permission from Brennan to make this video. I'm not just taking his opinions and ripping into them. As I said, I'm a massive fan of Dino Charge. I'm a fan of Brennan. I'll leave his channel linked in the description. Check it out if you haven't. He makes great Power Ranger content. What are your thoughts on the 2017 movie? As I said, I'm a big supporter. I think overall, Brennan's opinions are opinions of a lot of fans, right? I know diehard fans that hated the film, and I know people who don't care about Power Rangers in the slightest who saw it and was like, no, that film was good and I kind of wanted a sequel. It's a 50-50 split either way. Huge thank you and shout out to Sarah Jane, our Super Dino Mode Patreon.